Greetings. I'm Zachary Hepner. I'm pleased to share this Dvar Torah with you for Parashat Ekev. We are all used to prologues. In today's day, prologues are a bit antiquated because of the play's playbill. Shakespeare inserted prologues in a few of his plays. In his prologue for King Henry Vth, the prologue ends with, "Carry them here and there, jumping over times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply, admit me chorus to this history, who prologue like your humble patient pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play." Well, what do you know? The book of Devarim also starts with a prologue and reduces the previous 40 years of the Jewish history into a few chapters. Moshe starts Devarim with his initial prologue. Then his second prologue, in V'et, he evokes Shema Yisrael 4 times. The first Shema Yisrael is in chapter 4, V'ata Yisrael, Shema El HaChukim, followed by the consequences in the future generations when a generation forgets God. The second Shema Yisrael in chapter 5, Vayikra Moshe el Kol Yisrael, Vayomer Lehem, Shema Yisrael. That is followed by the Decalogue, the Aseret HaDibrot. In chapter 6, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, that's the traditional Shema Yisrael that we are all familiar with. And in Parashat Ekev, in chapter 9, Shema Yisrael, Ata Over Hayom et Hayarden, with more critical history of the past, 4 warnings not to forget God's providence, concluding with what we colloquially call the second chapter of the Shema, called V'haya im Shamoa. It's an inclusion that the Shema that is recited at least twice a day begins with the Shema of chapter 6 and concludes with the end of the final part of the 4th Shema, which is V'haya im Shamoa. In the temple period, the Decalogue was recited daily, but the Talmud says that it was not extended to outside the temple because of the claims of the heretics, Taromet Haminim. Possibly that the Decalogue was the only part of the original Torah, and the rest is footnotes added later. Unclear what the heretics or the early Christians claimed, but sufficient enough that the Chachamim chose to de-emphasize the 10 Commandments. Ironically, the Talmud Yerushalmi does say that all Aseret HaDibrot, all the 10 Commandments, are alluded to within the 3 chapters of the Shema that we do recite. Rabbi Etz Shalom so beautifully illustrated that following the Decalogue, the theme of the rest of Devarim, up until Parashat Kitavo, is a generalist unwinding of all the Decalogues, categorically and also in order. A truly beautiful tour de force. The encapsulation of the Shema from the famous 3rd Shema Yisrael until the end of V'haya im Shamoa brings more meaning into what is recited daily. Because there is a dispute whether the first of the 10 Commandments is even a commandment or simply a statement of declaration. Or to put it succinctly, it's only the 9 Commandments. I suggest that the recitation of the daily Shema is a declaration and fulfillment of the first commandment. The first commandment has 2 parts. Anochi, I am. And then it continues, Asher hotzeiticha, that God took the Israelites out of Egypt, which means God plays an active role in human affairs. Or to be precise, he exercises his divine providence. Similarly, Shema is a double declaration. The first line of the Shema affirms Anochi. The rest, all the way through the end of V'haya im Shamoa, affirms that God never checked out, that he's still the boss in charge, or as you may put it, God has the quill, ink, and paper, and is still writing the story. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.